We moved to Harrison Township, and I did not realize there was not a library in this township because we moved from Sterling Heights, who had a very large library that I attended a lot. And I said, well, that just can't be. So I came to talk to the supervisor at the time, who was Anthony Forlini. And he thought, well, yeah, that's true. My kids grew up here, no library and this and that. He really did help me a lot. We just got started. And fortunately, I'm not going to say for Macomb County, but at the time, the county library was closing. And we had the opportunity to go speak to them about taking some of the stuff so that we can start our library in Harrison Township. And that's where we got most of our books and shelving and a lot of good advice from the people at the Macomb County Library.
At that point, Marge Switowski was on the library board, and she was becoming more and more involved and asked me to step in and take her place on the Macomb County Library Board. And it was in that capacity I was able to lobby for, and as the county library closed, for collections that we could then use to transport them ourselves over here. And the librarians at the county library were absolutely phenomenal in helping us choose books.
We're really going to be missing their books. It was really a touchy situation. This upstart library had been given all their books, their favorite books, and we would hear from like the head of, the foreign language group of books, and they said, aren't you taking this book? Every library, good library, that we only have room for so many books. And they were it was kind of tricky. We were on their turf, but their turf had been taken away from them, so it was tough.
And it just so happened that the board at that time decided they were going to give us this area for our library. So we were very fortunate. It didn't cost anything. We didn't have anything. We had no funds at the time. So it worked out very good all the way around. As far as I knew, it was tried several times. But I think instead of building it first, and then worried about a millage and that later, I think with the groups that were trying to start it, probably were trying to get millages passed, and that wasn't going to happen. So, and it was a hard thing even afterwards to get a millage passed. But that's another thing, that's like another project. You have to work at it. And you go door to door, you knock on doors and tell people how important it is. And the people in Harrison Township all agreed. And they are good people, and they wanted a library in their township. I can't even tell you why I got so excited and knew that I could do something. I just felt that it was my calling, and first thing I thought to go and visit the supervisor. We had a nice long conversation, and he agreed with me, and him and I worked together a lot. We went to the county, we talked to the board members, we did everything that we could to make sure that everybody knew what was going to happen here, because I wasn't going to stop. If it wasn't going to work one way, we'll try another way and work it. But it worked, and I thank Mr. Forlini for all his help.
A few years into me being a township supervisor, the county decided to shut down their library, and that was our only library. So we quickly found an opportunity to establish the fact that our citizens don't have access to any library. Let's go ahead and get the books from the county. So that's what we did. And I understood the need. We should have a library. It's very important for the kids of our community. It's an important gathering place. I made an appeal to the county board. The county board says, well, we're getting rid of our library, we're getting rid of the shelves, we're getting rid of the books. Why not give them to Harrison Township? And the hall for me as a township supervisor was a problem because people were having parties here, bachelor parties, just big old blowouts. The neighbors didn't necessarily like what was going on here. So this is a great opportunity to convert this hall into something else.
My husband and I were part of the volunteer team that started the whole library. And it's one of our most wonderful experiences that we've ever had, because we love the library. And we loaded up our vans with boxes and boxes of books. We went and packed up the boxes, loaded up our vans, brought them back here, the strong men loaded up the shelving and assembled it. My husband assembled some of that.
Jim, you've been involved with this library community. You're part of the voluntary library group that's been working for months. For you, though, it didn't start just a few months ago.
You know, it started back in 1976. There were 8 of us that met during the bicentennial year, and we had the idea of starting a library.
Now, Jim, you had mentioned to me that you had tried to get a library going back in 1976.
In 76, there was about 6 of us who wanted to start a library. And we had talked about it. We met a couple times and found out that we had to get it on the millage, or I had to get it on the ballot. But the board told us we could have the old Township Hall, which is that old white building just down the street from us.
Okay.
And so we went over and looked at that, and it had a lot of work to be done on it. But we just couldn't get it going.
In 2006, I decided as a historian that I was going to put together a local history and library. At that time, Selfridge was expanding, well, actually their crash zone, so that the house had to be moved. And it was a beautiful old farmhouse, and I decided that would make a perfect place for me. Now, they gave me the house. All I had to do was move it and find a place to move it to. Unfortunately, you can't get it across the river because you can't get it under the wires, and you can't get it on the expressway, and you can't get it over the bridge. But then there are 2 places back down on me. So that was the end of my big effort.
It was really almost like capturing lightning in a bottle. I don't know if, every single circumstance had to be just right to make it work. So the fact that that a volunteer library ran for 5 years and then was able to turn it into, a library that was open full time and staffed, it really was a matter of everything coming together in this perfect way. If there wasn't a Marge, if there wasn't a Tony, if there wasn't a Joan, if there wasn't, a Joe and a Diane and a Linda, I don't know that it could happen any other way. As our friends and our neighbors and everybody that are working behind the counter are, chit-chatting and doing what neighbors do and having a good time and laughing, and we're still not a quiet library, but I would say we were really not a quiet library as a volunteer library, and mainly because everybody was friends. They were friends. When they weren't coming to work, they were working at a library with their friends. Things that I remember most about working at a volunteer library and working with the volunteers was that sometimes it was a little like herding cat, because they're volunteers, they're friends, it's a very light mood.
Always loved this area. We would take drives out here, and it was just a lovely community with the lakes. And when I was fortunate enough to find this condo that I'm in, it was really a dream come true. And it's just a lovely area, and I love being here. I had just ended my longtime career, and I knew I wanted to become involved in something. So when I noticed the article in the local paper, I called, and they set up a meeting. I think it was in January of 2009, if I recall correctly. And so I guess I was looking for something to do. I didn't think I wanted to be home all the time. I knew that I'd worked my entire life, so it was something that I needed to do for myself. And this seemed to be the perfect fit for me. I believe I was active in running some of the day-to-day operation of the library. I believe I created some forms for the library and some procedures, and which I'm sure have been enhanced since I've been gone. So I guess I sort of brought a little bit of managerial knowledge that I've had the previous 20-some years. So I was hopefully I was an asset to the library.
Joan Schmidt was the one that pulled everything together behind the scenes. She had the business know-how. She got all of our procedures together as far as how we were going to balance the register at the end of the day. What were our procedures for taking cash so that we could report on monthly earnings, you know, and things like that. She really did a great job of getting all of that together.
I love Harrison Township. That's where I got my first job here. I started working at South River Elementary. Got to know a lot of the families pretty well, and I think this is a marvelous little town. People are great. We have a lot of things to offer here in Harrison Township. In fact, I lived in Harrison Township for many years too. I'm in Mount Clemens right now, but kind of back and forth. And the one surprising thing about Harrison Township is that it did not have a library, a public library, like all the rest of the communities did, which was probably our only down point here. I think it is crucial for a community to have a public library. This is it should be the heart of a community, quite honestly. I mean, if you have, you know, we've always had good schools around here, which is fabulous, but schools don't go year round, and they obviously can't support the adult reading community. And so to have a public library is something that benefits everybody. It benefits the readers, it benefits people who are job hunting and need technology resources, and you know, just there's so many different things that a library does, programming that we offer for educational and fun purposes, and you know, getting little ones, your infants, your toddlers, your preschoolers into reading and literacy early is the very best thing that parents can do to set their kids up for success in school.
I was a preschool teacher in L'Anse Creuse for 40 some years. I know how important books are, and hearing books, even before you can read books, and hearing the language of books. So that was huge. I mean, that's what was my whole training growing, you know, coming along for early childhood. And to think that there were children who didn't have books in their homes, that to me, that is still a very scary thought. And when you look at the million-word difference between children who start kindergarten without having been read to, you know, there's all kinds of studies that children who come from homes that don't have books or haven't heard a book, their vocabulary is 1,000,000 words less than those who have had books read to them.
Library is more than just books. We're computers. We're activities. We're getting the word out to people about the things that they need. Where else can you find a computer when the only way to apply for a job is online? And if you don't happen to have a computer or feel comfortable around a computer, you need to come here so a librarian can help you to file that application so you can get that job. I mean, it's a life and death thing for people that don't have a lot of money. And, you know, it's so easy for people who are well off and have everything to say, well, I don't need it. Well, maybe you don't, but 3/4 of the community does.
Libraries are transitioning in their usage and how they get used. And so we still have a thirst for knowledge. We still have this need for a place to go. It's not just about the books anymore. It's about a place to learn, a place that you can work with others on projects. It's a common meeting place. So yes, digitally you can get things. I mean, I can look here and pull this book. I don't know which one I'm pulling, but Chris and Hannah, True Colors. I have no idea what this is. But you look at the words, I'm thinking, man, I don't want to, I'll never read this book. It's too many pages, too many words. Those words are too small. But I can get this on a Kindle. I can make the words a little bit bigger. I won't know how thick the book is. I'll just start reading and get lost in that. And that's the way I prefer to read books. It doesn't have to be here, but I still like to come here.
I always thought of this group as being an example of the Margaret Mead quote. Never underestimate the ability of a small group of dedicated people to get the job done, because in reality that's the thing that's worked the most, or something like that. I'm a planner. I'm not an executor so much, but the planning, the ideas of it, organizing, getting groups together, finding volunteers. I really had a new appreciation for the partnership of people and governmental agencies and community leaders. that that they don't have to be at opposite ends, that they can work together.
When I was in the legislature, I found that the penal codes went to libraries. Our library was not getting any penal codes, and that was because we were volunteer only, which I think is totally silly. We should have been able to have that opportunity to get those monies. Think about it. We have people that are working here for free, volunteering, helping a community out. Why wouldn't you bring those monies in? Why wouldn't you have the ability to bring those in? Where do those monies go? So I made an appeal to the legislature, had a bill written up, and we wrote that bill up so that certain communities over a certain size can have a volunteer library and still get the penal fines. And the legislature passed it, both the House and the Senate, and we went on to the governor. The governor signed it, and I think immediately we picked in $70,000 picked up. But it was about a $20,000, $25,000 a year that was coming to this library that this library had never seen before. So it was really a great asset that they were to pick up because they're just doing bake sales and book sales.
We raise, I'd say, an average of any place from $350 to $500 each week on those used books, which back in 2009 was good money.
I was a volunteer here starting in 2010. In 2012, I was named the volunteer library director. And then in 2015, I was the assistant director and became the library director in 2018. I was a mom of 3 in library school and saw this article in the newspaper about this volunteer library in Harrison Township. And it was a good opportunity for me, so I decided to apply and wanted to be involved.
2 people, I think, were responsible for making it a real library. Tom Secco and Chris Holmes.
They didn't have to do anything to rope me in. I was happy to do it, and that's why I showed up. It was important for me to do what I could do to help the library. You know, that is one thing, you know, you mentioned what I had going on. I was busy working a full-time job. So I felt bad because I couldn't be here on the days when volunteers were moving shelves and you know, hauling books around. But I certainly did what I could and was here as much as I could during that time. The group of people that were here at that beginning, at that first meeting, and those first meetings, to see such a dedicated, excited, positive group of people. It was a delight. Truly a great group of people. Helped implement our original library system, you know, coordinated that, negotiated that, getting discounts for that given our limited budget. And then of course every Saturday for the first 5 years or so, I was also working at the circulation desk. So.
Computer access, internet access, which, you know, that's imperative for some people, but if they can't afford internet at home, that's the only way they can apply for jobs sometimes, is they have to do it online. And if they don't have access to internet and a computer, they're really at a disadvantage of a lot of opportunities in the rest of the community and in life. And then Wi-Fi, you know, extending your Wi-Fi to the parking lot. So even though if you're not open, if someone was in a pinch and needed to get online for something, they can always, you know, pull right into the parking lot. And if they have a device that it can connect to the Wi-Fi, they're able to utilize the internet that way. What I ended up doing is I had never taken vacation days, so I had tons built up. So whenever I needed to throw some time to Harrison, I would take a vacation day. So it just kind of fit into my schedule because it was so convenient. I could take a day here or there whenever, or the home stretch when you guys were getting very close to your grand opening, I kind of lived here for almost 2 weeks.
I would drive by here at 2 o'clock in the morning and there would be the 2 of them with the lights on and ladders stringing cable through the ceilings.
Because surprisingly, I mean, people don't think of the little things with IT where there's no cables run in the building. So you have to run the wiring in addition to, you can't just put a computer on a desk. You have to drill the holes for the wires to go through the desk. And not only that, you have to actually get the computers, the wires, and luckily we were able to, I got a lot of items donated from the 2 libraries I worked at.
This came at the perfect time in my life. I retired in 2000. So I was not ready to just sit around. I loved it. We were all, I think, right at that age, you know, just about right after retirement. Everybody was like 60, 65, still had some energy. We just got to be such great friends.
One of our volunteers here that was very crucial in implementing this new library, she and I had worked together at South River Elementary. When I was the librarian there, she was the library clerk there, and she is just a wealth of information. She just, you know, is a library person to the core.
Gosh, I can't tell you how proud I am of this library and the work that
You
do.
do. Listen, you
I was telling one of my friends that we were having a reunion today, and their comment was that it was nice that we were having a founders reunion, and most of the founders were here to be able to enjoy it and appreciate it. So, and that is nice. It's very nice. And some of these people I haven't seen in a long time because some of them have moved away or they're involved in other things.
I came over, I was here when it was just an empty room, and I didn't haul the books from the other place, but I was here when they brought them. And the good thing about it is, well, we worked hard. And we worked hard and we got everything set up. I met some of the best people that are my friends that I met that I would never have met through the library. So one day we were at a gathering and some of the ladies said to me, what would you think about being a coordinator? Oh my gosh, I was so proud about that. And I go, yes, I'd like that. And so I was a coordinator every Saturday morning, probably for 4 years. Every Saturday morning I'd come and open the library up and get everything all set up, and it was really, really great.
We spent a lot of hours crossing out Macomb County Library and all the books, all the audio books, and then writing in HT Library in there. And I mean, we did it so much I was dreaming about it at night. And we finally did open up the library. It was just so rewarding and so special to know that you were a part of making this come true. And I'd lived in Harrison Township for, at that time, about 35 years, and we never had a library. So it was really, really special to have a library, a real library that we could go to and check out books and use. And it's just been a really wonderful thing.
I found a place where I felt like I belonged, and I found lifelong friends. I found people that loved me and people that I loved, and we worked hard. We moved books. We had book sales over at Kroger. We moved books back and forth. We moved tables. We moved books. We had cookie sales. We had sales of every kind, and I don't think I've ever worked so physically hard in my life.
I was way more involved than I ever thought in starting up the library board, writing the rules and regulations, and being aware of laws, being aware of the environment. I mean, you don't know who's going to walk into your building. What do you do? And I found in the library that I couldn't find anywhere else in the community was a community center.
Quite honestly, there's only so much. If you've ever worked in an organization with volunteers, you know, you've got your gung-ho volunteers that put in all they can, but there's only so much you can do with volunteers before they start to get a little burned out, and they, you know, it's a lot to expect of people to do what should be somebody's job on a volunteer basis and not get paid for it. I mean, there's not a lot of people like that who are willing to take on that level of commitment and put out that kind of quality for free. And we were really fortunate to have some people in this community that did just that.
I was here in 2013 when we proposed a millage proposal. And I don't know, as a lover of library, I guess I was surprised that there was so much opposition.
Two gentlemen that really were against the library gave me a very hard time. They gave us a very hard time and sent mailings out to residents. They did all that against the library, but we just went and sent more for the library. One of them, who didn't know what he was talking about, said there is a library in Harrison Township. And I'm going, no, there is not. Oh yeah, there is a library here. That was his point. And he wrote that and sent it to people. There already is a library in Harrison Township.
The Township Library was volunteer only for several years, and it showed the passion, and it showed value to the residents, and the residents saw the value into having a library. That's why the millage passed.
I don't know if people just weren't aware in 2013. We heard after the fact some people saying I didn't even know that the library was on the ballot. So I don't know if I should give them the credit to say that they sunk it in 2013, and it might have just been that, you know, we hadn't been loud enough in 2013 and were a louder voice in 2014 when it actually passed.
Everybody loved working here. When you are determined that something is for the benefit of everyone, and I think your heart and soul go into making it the best it can be.
It was just good people with a passion to have a library. People who loved books, people who loved libraries, people who wanted children to have that experience of all that can happen at a library.
I definitely think it's a labor of love. I mean, you have to really love what you're doing and love the thought of what you are doing is going to affect those around you and your own life too. And I just think it's those who have been involved from the beginning. We became a family.
So many of the things we love actually connect us to other people. Mm-hmm. So you have this group of volunteers that are all working on this project together. Mm-hmm. They all connect with each other, yes. And then that strengthens their love for the library and for that group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we saw that. Thank you for giving us a backup with your research and your expert advice. We appreciate it.
And it's really been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being a guest author here. It was really marvelous. And remember, we had you first at the Harrison Township Public Library.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing me up.
Great. Thank you.
That.
Looking back now, how do you feel about your involvement in the effort to form this library?
It was wonderful. I mean, I was a homebody because that's kind of just the way I was, but it got me out of the house, it got me involved, I made a lot of wonderful friends, and it gave me something new to dedicate myself and get involved in and stuff, and it was really good for me to do. It helped me bring me out of myself as well as helping the community.
I am just so happy that Harrison Township is now a community with a public library.